Welcome everybody to Enhancing the Accountant Bookkeeper Connection series um, and featuring KATA Accounting. So that is myself, Tanya Hiltz, CPB, founder of Cloud Business Services and Tanya's Bookkeepers Bootcamp. But I think everybody on this call knows me by now. A little bit about myself. Just I'm Insightful Accountant's top Canadian ProAdvisor for 2020, top 100 ProAdvisor for 2018, 19, and 20, CPB's 2019 Professional Leader of the Year, or sorry, CPB Canada's 2019 Professional Leader of the Year. And then you guys can read everything else. Going through them all the time gets kind of boring. A little bit about this webinar. So this webinar actually has been, we're ahead of the game today. So we submitted for 4 of them all at once. So when they get approved the next time that everybody or that the committee meets, you should see them all coming out pretty much all together. But so yeah, we're ahead of the game, this one, which is awesome. So it has been submitted for CPD credits through CPB Canada. There will be 2 polls that must be answered in order to qualify for the credits. A recording of the webinar will be emailed within 2 days, and certificates for CE credits or CPD credits, whichever, will be emailed within 2 weeks of receiving approval. And a little bit about KATA Accounting. So we've been collaborating with Jonathan and his team for a number of years, multiple mutual clients together. Jonathan works in QBO. He's got outstanding attention to detail, outstanding customer service, and also very, very proud to call him friend as well as just collaborator. And I guess that's about it. So I will stop sharing and I will let Jonathan take over.
Well, thanks for the lovely introduction as always, Tanya. I don't know if we're going to show you. Oh no, there we are. So who am I? Who am I to be speaking today? I'm the founder of KATA Accounting Solutions Professional Corporation. I've done a lot of work with Intuit. Tanya and I are still trying to get work papers working properly. I was a member of the inaugural Intuit Accountants Council. And I've had a long-standing relationship with them. I am hosting a brain date on June 1st if anybody wants to join in and talk even more about communication, because that seems to be my favorite topic to speak about. I was the recipient of the 2018 Inspire Accountant Award. That was very, very flattering because it was a surprise. It wasn't, and it was voted on by this community. So thank you for that. We are elite ProAdvisors, QBO's advanced certified, at least until we have to redo the exams. Everybody in our firm is at least QBO basic certified. That's the first thing that everybody has to do. I am considered a trusted advisor for several cloud bookkeeping firms and a thought leader in technology and accounting, and we love working with technology companies. We do tax on a wider scale, but when it comes to bookkeeping, we try to refer out anything that is not a cloud-based consultant or creative. That's the niche that really we seem to be attracting and where we want to go deep. So our motto is communicate, collaborate, and innovate. So today is a bit of a subjective webinar again. I just titled it, "What are you doing?" Because just recently I've encountered a lot of business owners and I'm literally asking myself, what are you doing? Like where they're spending their time and their effort is not in line with what they want for their business. So it's kind of interesting to have those things. Just a brief agenda. We're always talking about strategy. Strategy, in my opinion, is not something that should be changed a lot, but some people are changing it every week. And it's very hard to go in a set direction if you're constantly changing your strategy. We're going to talk about human resources, or the human element, and financial management, marketing and sales, operations, forecasting, and planning. I'd like to state at the beginning that I am an expert in none of these, but these are all areas where I'm constantly self-developing and growing in. I think I've gotten pretty good at some of them. Some of them I definitely need some work in, but having that feedback is, from customers and from results, from the numbers, has always been very helpful. So poll question number 1, what is the most important thing a bookkeeping or cloud or accounting business owner can do? A, revisit the strategy in place regularly to ensure it's the direction you want the company to go in. B, ensure the tactics being implemented are geared towards the desired strategy. C, sell, sell, sell. Or D, getting the bookkeeping done. Or finally, E, A, and D. So again, this is subjective, but I know what answer I have picked.
I think we're missing something here. I think we're missing an A and B.
Oh, like the actual letters A, B, C, and D?
Well, no. Actually, I think it's actually it's A and B, I think. I guess if you're revisiting strategy regularly to make sure it's a direction, then you've got to make sure that you're implementing the tactics to get you towards the desired strategy. That's my thought.
That's why it's subjective, right?
Exactly. Yep.
I can't pick two.
No, I know. Yeah, you only pick one. So we've got
Oh,
7.
I can actually pick one. Oh, it's waiting for me. Okay.
No, well, there's still 9, 10, 11. Perfect. There we go. Yeah, you and I don't get the CPD credits for it though, Jonathan. So
I picked 2 and I did go with A and D. I hear what you're saying, Tanya, about wanting A and B, but then it struck me that if I have a bookkeeping practice and I'm not getting the bookkeeping done, then I don't have a practice anymore. So it doesn't matter what my strategy is if I'm not getting the bookkeeping done. So I ended up choosing A and D.
well, see, and that's where B could be. What are the tactics being implemented is making sure the bookkeeping and the work is getting done. So, all right. So it's end polling. I will share the results, and Jonathan can let us know what his version of the answers are.
It's interesting.
So that A and B, A and the bottom one are dead on.
Yeah, bang on in the lead, eh?
Huh.
I would personally say that ensuring the tactics are geared towards the desired strategy. How are you using your time? If you're the owner of a business, you don't necessarily want to be doing the bookkeeping all the time. You don't necessarily want to be selling all the time. Those aren't necessarily where your time is best spent, right? So that was my line of thinking. But again, this is a subjective poll question. This is not something where there is an exact right answer.
About owner.
And I was going to say, you're right. That's actually where it changes it, because you're right. What is the owner? The owner's not getting it done. The owner's ensuring that the work is getting done.
Yeah.
Sometimes the owner's doing it all, but yeah, not necessarily. Interesting.
I think I should have changed the word regularly to often in the first option. Because what I do see happen is sometimes people are constantly changing direction and never updating the tactics. So,
Right.
Okay, we're going to go in this direction with this thing, but then they, go wide on it. They release, say, a new app to all their customers, but their customers are like, what's this? I don't understand why I'm getting this. And then 6 months later, they're switching apps again. And it doesn't give the customer a lot of confidence in the company and the direction they're going. The reason I thought tactics was most important is what I'm seeing quite often is people are shelving that very important Q2 work. I'm sure you've heard me talk about that Q2, very important, has a much higher ROI than any other type of work you do. I see people skipping that to do things that really should be delegated. And I've seen that happen a fair bit. And it's unfortunate because, as business owners, we get so much going on in our life, we can't possibly know everything. And there comes a point where you have to let go and start to trust people. So,
yeah. All
right, so let's start with strategy development. Oh, I'm loving that this is going to be an interactive session. So I always talk about starting with the end. It's not my quote or anything. I think it was John Maxwell or Peter Drucker, somebody like that, one of the famous people in those spaces. So what do you want? And that's the most important thing. As a business owner, what do you want? Do you want a job that you're working in every day, or do you want a turnkey operation and go sit on a beach somewhere while somebody else runs the business and you're meeting with them, once a month or something like that? There's a variety of different things along that line, but what do you want for your business is very important and probably the most important thing. What value are you delivering? And to kind of go into the next point a bit, is there a risk to that value you're delivering? So if you're just doing data entry, we all are very aware that there's a lot of risk to those kind of positions where it's strictly data entry. So what's the value you're delivering? What is the vision? Are you being visionary? And it doesn't have to be out there Steve Jobs craziness. It can be nice and simple, like Cargojet. Cargojet is a great example of a good vision that really filled a lot of value and need in the economy. And then who do you want to serve? And I've had some good conversations with people around here. I won't single anybody out, but like just chasing things they really like to do. And I think that's really cool. And I think that's very important, not just as the owner, but like what you want your business to be doing, what you want it to be focused on. So the competitive environment is something that I look at very frequently. The SWOT for me is a living document. I'm not as great as keeping my business plan as a living document, but I am pretty good at keeping the SWOT up to date. And then looking for possible advantages you can create to have a potential customer say, you know what, there's a real advantage to working with this company over the competition because of whatever it is. And then really, what are your key objectives? What are you trying to accomplish? Does anybody want to like jump in and like throw out some ideas? Oh, I see, Carol.
What is the SWOT?
Sorry. SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So it's essentially a quadrant.
Okay.
The strengths and weaknesses are about your business, internally
Right.
looking. The opportunities and threats are externally looking. So for instance, an automated, some of these big startups are trying to automate all bookkeeping. Those could be threats. Nobody's got it right yet. But if you're in that space, that might be an opportunity for you. You know, poor
Right.
communication from accountants. That's a big opportunity for us. And we've really leveraged that with our existing customer base. Okay. All right. Next slide. So let's talk about vision for a minute. We all know who this guy is. Very, very visionary person. I think they've done a very good job of creating the public persona. And I think some of the stuff that's come out posthumously has shown us that he's a very astute business person as well as being visionary. So what is the future you want to create for you, for your team, for your customers? What is the future you want to create? What do you see is possible? Who are you going to serve? Because we all serve somebody. And what value are you creating? So for instance, if we're doing, let's say we're doing basic T1 personal tax returns, we're pretty much operating in the same space as like UFile and TurboTax. That's not a whole lot of value we're creating. We're actually eroding value for the customer because they're probably paying us more than they would for the software. Those aren't really the kind of customers that we look for, because we feel that it's never in the customer's interest to pay more fees. They need to be getting value for those fees. So these are some of our internal philosophies. And then, what is the future you want to create? One thing for us is we want people coming to us whenever they have a money question. I had a very interesting personal tax consulting meeting yesterday, where about half the meeting we started talking about a death manual. What happens when you die? How is your insurance like? The person's doing very well from an investment and net worth standpoint, but should one of them die, the husband or wife, the other one is going to have a ball of wax to unravel, and that's not going to be very much fun. So we started talking about, like, who talks about a death manual? That's so strange, but there's some ideas. So a good way of thinking about the difference between vision and mission is you want to be visionary when it comes to vision. Whereas the mission is you're being a missionary, you're getting, how you're going to do that. So just a couple here that I really like. To make the best products on earth and leave the world better than we found it. To provide access to the world's information in one click. Google's kind of creepy that way, but they're really doing a good job of it. Any comments, questions about vision? Does anybody want to share a vision statement?
With Google, you just have to think and then they start sending you stuff.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, one day it will be like a biosensor on the watch that's like detecting our brain waves. And
Well,
maybe not in our
saying,
lifetime. I
brain.
hope not in our lifetime. Yeah, that's a little too creepy. All right, so mission. What's your purpose for being? It needs to be clear and concise. So I had to put into it here. This was really good. I really did not like the vision statement. I really liked the mission and the values from Intuit. I thought their vision statement was broad and convoluted. It really, in the end, was kind of like a PR statement more than a true vision statement. But this is a good one. And Xero's I really liked as well. So I decided to put them both up there. Does anybody here have a vision or mission statement? Cool.
We do. I do. That's part
Are
of
you
what I've
willing to
been.
share?
I sure am. I'm going to look it up right now. It's on the website.
Yeah, I have to look up mine too. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment.
Yeah, so it's on the website, and I've come up with it when working with Jeannie, trying to create our why. And it's been very difficult to come up with the why because, it's all of this stuff. But in the process of that, I've actually come up with a vision statement and a mission statement. So on our front page, I've got just kind of as a bit of a vision statement. Your passion is your business. Our passion is supporting you to set you up for success. Then when you go to our team is our mission statement, which is empowering entrepreneurs to reach their full potential. And then our why, which is very different. I can't remember what the why is. What? By continuing to be in the webinar. Why is it trying to kick me out of the meeting? Okay, that's very strange.
Security protocols. You have to consent to being recorded.
Well, yeah, it's just weird though. It just said that I'll be kicked out of the meeting, and I'm like, I don't know why, but okay. Anyway, oh my gosh, what was it? We just figured it out last week, and essentially it's to, Jeannie has it. I don't have it, but anyway, it's about to help the entrepreneurs reach their perfect and desired work-life balance, which is essentially the same thing. It's funny that it was just so basic and simple, and Jeannie kept saying, no, go back to why you're doing this. I said, well, because I wanted to work with Elizabeth. I wanted to be here for Elizabeth and still be able to work and have that balance. I want the team to have that, like Sandra and Leanne. That was what was really important when bringing, the team on, is I want them to be able to have the same things and for our clients to have the same thing. So that's what we determined my why is, or our why is, so that I can't remember the exact wording. But anyway, there's our mission statement and our vision statement. That was your question. So I've answered it and I'll be quiet now.
We got a couple in the chat here. I just want to read them out because I like them. Empower people to take responsibility and have accountability for their finances without judgment. I like that one. That's Amy. And then Kim, to provide effective business solutions in a timely manner, creating irreplaceable partnerships with each client. Nice. Ours is our vision is to be the trusted first stop for cloud-based creatives and consultants. And our mission is to build deep relationships with each other, our customers, our colleagues, and deliver an excellent customer experience to our target market. That's a little more convoluted than I'd like. And it's something that we look at once a year. We're looking at it literally once a year.
How would you explain the difference between vision and mission? Because a lot of times they sound the same.
Definitely. And I thought the best analogy was the visionary versus missionary idea. What is a visionary versus what is a missionary, right? So what and why versus the how and actually doing the work. But I mean, there's literally like, I have literally spent a week at one point doing mission, vision, and values during actually the accounting training from Certified Management Accounts of Ontario back in the day. And there's people who consult on this at a very high level and get ridiculously paid for consulting with big C-suite about refining their mission, vision, and values. Because it's something that should, to some degree, be evolving, but the basic principles should be the same. All right, I'm going to go back, and I don't think I'm sharing anymore, so I'm going to share it. So values are the core of your business. You may have more values, but what are the most important? So I've listed ours here. Everybody sees this. Everybody knows this statement from us. Communicate, collaborate, innovate. People, technology, knowledge, that's kind of our secondary. We've played with using KATA as an acronym, but CPA Ontario doesn't like it, so we don't do it. Loyal, so we were actually based to, like, the whole founding of the company was based upon some of those imported ideas from Japan, like Kaizen, and actually KATA has become a term used to talk about business improvement. So it was kind of a fortunate thing that happened there that was in no influence from us whatsoever. And we took the Bushido code, which is the code of the samurai, and adopted some of those kind of ideas, right? Loyalty, service, integrity, honor. So we will fire clients for being dishonest with us. Loyalty is extremely important to us amongst each other, and helping each other within the team to back each other up and help each other move forward. So these are some of our values. One of them, there's some interesting ones out there. I really like the one human. I've seen that used as a value. Does anybody else have any values that they've really seen or liked or want to kind of throw out there for a quick moment?
One of the, I mean, I consider it a value of I've adopted in my business from day one is that honesty and integrity. That's just it's paramount in what I do for my business and for clients. And if either of those start failing, something changes or I let the client go.
Yeah, trust is so important in our industry. And one of the things that I see is a lot of lip service to things and not taking responsibility for it. So like honesty and integrity, I mean, one of the common ways to be honest, and it may cost you, is to, when you identify an error or a mistake or you guys miss something, letting the customer know, working to resolve the problem immediately, not trying to deflect or to excuse a mistake or an issue. Yeah, I like Amy's there. Community, knowledge, education, kindness. You know, community is actually my wife's top value for her business, and that's one that I really am kind of. It's one that we might be incorporating this year when we review our business plan.
Yeah, community is one of ours. We've got 5 core values on our website, and it's, strong customer service, satisfaction of helping our businesses, security and privacy. We believe short-term results turn to long-term results, and we believe in giving back to the community. Yep.
I'm going to keep going because we're approaching 12:30. So the humans, like people are a foundation of all organizations. Who do you need? Who do you want? How do you find them? And why do you want to work with? Why do they want to work with you? What's their motivation for working with you? It's something else to keep in mind. One issue that actually Tanya was with me through this challenge was I actually in the past hired my mentor. And he's a great man. I still love him to death. But because we went from, like, we inverted our relationship, going from me kind of being his right hand to him being my right hand, those roles were very blurred, and it was hard to kind of make that change. And for a long time, people thought he was a partner in KATA accounting, whereas he was a contractor with KATA accounting. And sometimes, long story short, it doesn't always work out when you hire people you know. The first person I ever hired was my mother's best friend in this company, and the first person I fired was my mother's best friend. And that was not a fun conversation to have. So it's just something to keep in mind. I do find that going to the open market, you get a wider selection of people, you get people more attuned to your skill set. The hard part for me has been filtering through the BS, because quite often people will make claims and they'll be able to talk to a subject matter well enough to pull the wool over your eyes with regards to their actual level of experience or quality of experience, which can matter as well. Anybody have any comments on this? Again, totally not an expert on this. I've leaned heavily on Steve and Juliet's ideas with regards to hiring, and that's really helped me. And one of the brain gates I'm looking forward to attending is Susan Watkins. and her thing about hiring the right bookkeeper.
Yeah. I've always had a home-based business, so hiring people within my home, I don't have a sort of actual separation. Well, I guess I could put a lock on the door, but so when I started hiring, I was very selective as to who I was going to hire. I have hired some friends and it's worked out okay. And right now I actually have two girlfriends working with me, and now of course because of COVID we're remote. But yeah, we've maintained the status that if anything gets a little off kilter, we'll break the work relationship to maintain the friendship.
Yeah, that's important.
But having somebody in my home that I can trust, that I can give a key to my house to say, hey, go to work when I'm not there. Yeah.
That's quite different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things being cloud-based, one of the challenges we find is people like the idea of it, but not everybody can actually cope with it. Working from home and actually getting the work done. And knowing what to do is important. When somebody doesn't know what to do, that's my fault. For sure, that's my fault. But when they know what to do and they're just not doing it because they're at home and it's easy to throw on Netflix or play video games or whatever other distraction there is, that can become a real problem. I'm just going to move on from there because we do have to keep moving. So financial management is not bookkeeping. This is more of looking at the overall picture. What are your goals? I mean, without goals, there's no point in measuring anything. Are you achieving them? Like statistically, numerically, are you achieving them? Are you growing the customer base you want to grow? Are you continuing to take clients who are not a good fit? We did that this year. We've taken 3 clients who are not a good fit and who are being a headache. And it's really tough to say no when you've known them for 20, 30 years too. And that can be a challenge. For me personally, anyway. I saw Carol shake her head like, nope, not a challenge. You're not a good fit, you're not coming. So leaks in the boat.
But
This is actually a term.
sorry, I think that's a really important thing because not only have I had my own business for 23 years, I've been in the accounting industry for over 30 years. And when you have to have somebody that you're working side by side with every day, especially when I work full time, every day, all day long, there has to be a fit. There has to be a cohesive meld of some sort, because if there isn't, I mean, it's constant. And I've had that. I've been with clients where, they've hired somebody for HR and it sometimes it's well, and sometimes it's not well at all. And I've had to really learn to hold my tongue and not say things because, yeah, I'm the contractor in the mix.
Yeah. There's times too where professionalism and certification to me is actually really important.
Yes.
I know that if we're hiring somebody who is a CPP, we're going to get a different level of professionalism than if we're hiring somebody who has decided to become a bookkeeper. And Tanya talked about this, I believe, in our last webinar about how these businesses popped up and folded all within COVID. And we've had recently, somebody tell us we don't need to do work papers for this customer. Their tax return is very simple. Well, I mean, you're somebody with no formal education in bookkeeping or accounting, and you're telling me how to do my job. It kind of became an interesting way to navigate communication, and we've had to be a little bit more cautious. And then the expectation, right? Like attention to detail is one thing, but as accountants, we're not allowed to dig deep on every transaction. We actually got our hands slapped by CPA for going too deep on client files in the past. So we have to ask questions and get responses. And, yes, if you say, hey, that document's attached to that transaction, we'll go look at it. If it has what we need, great. But we're not going to go and look at, 500 or 600 transactions to try and find what we need without asking about it. Right? So those are some of the things we've had recently. That kind of got off on a tangent. So are you achieving your goals? Are there leaks in your boat? So we decided that, for instance, the fax service we were talking about before, we used MyFax, very happy with it, had no issue with it. but at, you know, $12 US a month for 3 faxes in 6 years, that's doesn't make a lot of sense. So we plugged that leak. Another leak we are looking to plug or to switch is our call service. So if you call the toll-free number, we have a service in the US that will answer the phone, take a message, get it to us by email, and we'll follow up. And they're usually really good. We usually get the message within an hour of the phone call. So we're usually able to follow up really quickly. But the service is quite expensive. So that's a leak that we're looking to plug. Again, our tactics aligned with strategy. So I was working with a customer the other day, and they're looking for high quality paying customers who are looking for longer, deeper relationships. And they're offering free work online. It's like, is this tactic going to get you the conversations with the right type of people that you want in your stable of customers? So that was kind of an interesting conversation that we had. Another customer dropped everything to go and do an employee's job because the employee didn't show up to work, but she could have called one of her other employees to go and fill that role and continue doing what really was important to her business. So the tactics, what's happening, is it lining up with the direction where you want to go? So sometimes this includes non-financial data. Probably the most famous of these, the Net Promoter Score, when you're getting customer feedback. And there's some interesting articles out there about how to use the Net Promoter Score. And you know, getting the feedback for us is extremely important. So we had an interesting thing this past tax season where we had 2 5 out of 5 reviews and that actually left 5-star reviews, but it still had suggestions for improvement. And that was really useful for us because we know they're happy, but we know we can make them happier. So that was very helpful for us. What are other examples? I kind of miss KATA AI because they had some cool things in there, and you know, you could see things like, you know, when there is retail open, foot traffic, day of the week, weather, and the effect on sales. That's an interesting measure. You know, if you're going to a big you know, event like a music festival or something and setting up a booth, what kind of output are you getting there? You know, I met a financial planner at the CNE one year who was like, "Yep, it's totally worth the money and the time. I can, you know, I work about 3 hours a day from the desk in the back of my booth, and you know, it costs us a lot of money to do this, but every year we get 1 or 2 whales, so it's totally worth it." You know, we spend like say $12,000 to have a booth at the CNE, and you know, we might get 1 or 2 people that will pay us $20,000 or $30,000 a year in fees. So it's definitely worth it. So there's different things along those lines. And financial management beyond cash management, how are your results lining up with your strategies is a very interesting part to talk about. Marketing and sales, again, who do you want to work with? Going back to strategy, how are prospects becoming aware of your brand and what triggers them to make a purchase? And are they the right type of customers? Are you saying yes to anybody? And do you have qualified and effective help in this area, and do you need it? So my answer was hell's yes, I needed the help. I was not good at marketing. Our social is improving a lot. It is internal, but these are things like, you know, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? I know there's dozens of firms out there who will sell you every bottle of snake oil when it comes to marketing. Does anybody have any commentary or thoughts in this area? Because I know everybody here does marketing to a degree.
I just recently started marketing in this last year, mainly from the Bookkeepers Bootcamp. Sort of, there was a challenge put out to us. But for me, I mean, I've tried it over the years, and I haven't sort of tracked it to see, you know, what was successful. I do know things I tried that were not successful. But yeah, when it came to this and doing that kind of stuff, it was, you know what, I boast it to my clients all the time. Do what you do best and hire the rest. And that's exactly what I did. I am not a marketer, not into doing that kind of stuff. So I hired out.
Are you happy with what you've got?
I am.
It's interesting because marketing, I think there's mindful marketing, and we're marketing whether we intend to anyway. So
True.
that's kind of an interesting back and forth when we're not doing it mindfully. Are we attracting the right type or the wrong type of customer or people in general?
Mhm.
Well, and that's what I'd say is first off, you need to go where the people that you want to work with congregate, because if like, for example, I like dealing with the small people, so I'm not going to go to a conference or convention that attracts the big guys. I'm going to go to something that maybe would attract small startups if that's what I want to do. But the most important thing, and Carol mentioned that, is tracking it. And I remember, this goes back to when in my previous life in insurance, I remember at CIBC Insurance when I was there, I saw different phone numbers all the time. And I said to them in one of the meetings, I'm like, why is there different phone numbers? And it was so simple. And this has stood with me. They said, so that they know what works and what doesn't work. So they know all the numbers that come in on this ad attracted their target people. This ad maybe attracted their people that they weren't, they're non-target people. So then it kind of told them what ad, again, to use. So regardless of what you're doing, whether you're doing different ads, whether you're doing, newspaper, whatnot, again, who is it that you want to try to deal with? And personally, I would think that, how many people that we want to try to deal with for businesses are reading the newspapers. I hate to say it, but I think people reading the newspaper, I think of my grandpa, right? He's not who I would want to attract for a business type of thing. But again, tracking it so that way you know what's working and what's not working is always key.
Yeah,
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I've taken a really passive approach to marketing, because when I first started, I didn't want a lot, because I didn't yes, I wanted clients, but I was afraid of putting myself out there and then getting too many. And then now kind of the idea for what I've done in my I don't want clients right now. It's I have too much and I'm not looking for that. So I didn't want to say, hey, I didn't want to pose those questions. If you need help, contact us, things like that, because I didn't want people contacting us at that time. But at the same time, I really didn't want to just drop off the face of the planet and then not exist. And then when I wanted new clients, then start existing again. So I've gone a lot with my marketing. I've gone a lot with my values, community. So we do a lot of, promoting of other businesses on our page, and we do a lot of giveaways and things like that. And then I also have taken a really authentic approach to social media, because it is my business and I run it. So the past few months has not been easy for us. So I've put it out there, you'll see me struggle, but you'll never see me quit. We're really just authentic in that way, so that people remember that we're here. But I'm still not at that, because I really don't want to be give us a call if you need help, and then they call me and be like, oh, we're not taking anybody, because that's just that's not the way, because they'll remember that, right? But if you don't actually put it out there to call, but people still reach out, you can give them a little bit of advice or whatever you can afford, and then say, we're not accepting anybody, but here's a couple resources for you. So that's just, I'm also really not good at those things. I'm afraid of being hey, here you go, come work with me. And then 30 people want to work with me. And I'm it's too many people. I have extreme social anxiety, even though I'm a raging extrovert. So I struggle with that a lot. But it's interesting that we talk about this and how it goes. And I'm sorry, I'll stop talking.
No worries. I do enjoy your posts, and I enjoy the authenticity of them. I think that's really good about it. But yeah, I don't think I've ever seen you try and sell in any of your posts.
I never have. Not.
Fascinating.
And so when I first started, I was just me. And then when I brought on a social media manager about a year and a half ago, I was very clear with her. Be you offer ideas, you offer resources, but you do not say, if you need something, contact us. Because if people need something, they're going to contact us. In my opinion, that's just, and I want to be that girl that people were oh yeah, Amy's really good with this stuff, I should call her. Not, oh, Amy like always asks people to call her when they need things. Like and that's just me. Like, I don't think of it in any negative way with anybody else, but that's just me. Also, because like if I say call me and then they call me and I don't want to help them, it's just now I'm like, well, I didn't really ask for this now, did I? So that's kind of just my mindset around it. But yeah.
That's fair enough. I'm just want to say a couple quick things. I just realized it's 1:45. We still
Yeah,
have a few slides.
I
to
did
get
sorry.
through. I think of like sales is like the actual call when you're having a person, you're vetting them out, seeing if it's a good fit, providing a quote, things like that. But marketing to me is actually part of that marketing is internally to our existing customer base and to the team as to how we want our behavior internally to be. And it's really actually had some really positive results. We've got a great team environment, a lot more water cooler type chat going on. We have, these are not my ideas. These are ideas I've gotten from other people over the years, but it's really helped us improve our culture a lot. So I think of marketing as both internal and external, and then sales is like that bottom end of the funnel. Again, I'm not an expert in this area at all. So I think this is the exact same bullet. Getting organized and staying organized is an ongoing process. This is the exact same bullet from the last presentation. I just thought it really suited here because operations, the hardest part about it is it being organized. Where is stuff? Is it there? Are you, is your customer meeting your expectations, and are you meeting the customer's expectations? Are people finding what they need? And do you have efficient processes? So I'm not going to go too deep into this, but these are some of the items that we have. CRM system, bookkeeping ecosystem. We all have varieties of those. Communication tools from that, I'm thinking like kind of the MailChimp, Slack, those kind of things. Workflow, practice management tools, coaches, consultants, and creatives. And we do actively use coaches. We're on our third coach right now. And once that wraps up, we'll probably take a break for the remainder of the year and see how everything played out from working with that coach and decide what kind of the next step we want to take is. Does anybody feel like they need a lot of work in operations, or do you think their operations are solid? I just see this huge smile and a wave.
I'm not gonna lie. I am a work in progress. And there's a lot of stuff that I did in this last year. And then I took a MS365 for business course in January to March. And it's kind of really taking my whole world upside down again, because I'm now challenged to move things, just as an example, everything from OneDrive to SharePoint, which is a good thing because then I got rid of ShareFile that was costing me like $800 a year. But now I have to rethink the whole mentality of how I file, what the client can see, what the client doesn't need to see, what they're going to have access to, what they're not going to have access to. So, yeah.
And also you get to try and change other people's habits, which is very challenging to do. Changing our own, at least we have some control over it.
Well, but the biggest thing is
yeah,
it's my habits, and it's kind of, am I adopting something completely new and different that someone has been doing for 5 or 6 years that they're completely used to? Or do I somehow keep my own and adopt moving forward what I've been doing for 30 years?
Yep.
Can I teach an old dog new tricks? I'm not too sure.
That's ageist. Sorry.
I'm not going to lie. I'm still here. I'm good.
No, fair enough. All right. I'm just going to keep on moving. I've been thinking a lot about lifestyle design, building the dream, building your dream. What do you want from your business, and are you getting it? I'm almost there, not quite there. I'd like to actually take vacations, but what's the point right now? What value do you want to create, and are you creating it? And really another question here is, are you creating it effectively? Is it being understood and appreciated by the people who you're trying to create it for? And that might tie back to marketing, right? How are you marketing the value to your existing customer that you have created? Who do you want to work with? Are you working with the right people? And what does your dream life look like? Are you planning on creating it, hoping that'll happen someday? Are you accepting your environment and what's happening, or are you trying to mold and direct it in the future? So this is an interesting idea. I know that there's some people on this call who are working towards kind of building that dream life. And yeah, does anybody want to kind of contribute any ideas about this at this time? Creating the future, again, what I'm striving for, organized and easy to find things. I am loving Google Keep. It is helping me so much with so many stupid little lists. It's fantastic and totally searchable. On my computer that's actually connected to my Google account, I can just type in the Google search bar and it'll bring up my Google Keep notes about subjects, things like that. This is also helping me develop more business intelligence, which is something I've always wanted to do, but been quite weak at doing. So trying to get like lists of like, you know, bookkeepers who work with restaurants, bookkeepers who work with truckers, you know, tax accountants who work on cross-border tax issues, whole life insurance salespeople who can help, you know, clear up shareholder loan issues. Those type of customer intelligence really helped. I've really focused on creating value for me, my family, and my community, and that is really my priorities. And it has to be that way, because if I'm not functioning, I can't create value for anybody else. I try to eliminate small stresses. A great way is automation whenever we can. I'm trying to get more flexible in what life demands from me. You know, we're hoping to have a family, and I know there's going to be some stresses there. So I'm going to need some flexibility down the road. So how do I get from A to B? And you know, health, joy, and happiness. Those are things I want for myself. And then leaving this world and community better than what it was. And I tell that to everybody who we hire and everybody that we work with. It's like, no matter what happens, like one day, hopefully your business is going to outgrow us, and you know, we'll just be in a consulting impact capacity, and you'll need a lot more than what we're capable of doing. But our goal is for you to always be better off than when you first met and we first started working together. So what's next poll question? What's the most important thing you can do next? Do some bookkeeping, prioritize what's most important to me, make sure I like the customers and team I work with, go and find a new customer, or A&D. Again, completely subjective.
Yeah, I'm looking at this and I'm like, prioritize what's important to me, but it's also important to like you know, your customers and team that you work with, but that could be a priority that's important to you.
Doing the bookkeeping might be a priority too, right?
Not for me, are you kidding? I'll leave that to Sandra and Lee.
It
Sandra's like,
all
yeah,
depends
right.
on what stage you're in your business, right? And
Yeah.
I'm sure there's times where something comes up that you got to step in and be like, oh, let's
there's
figure that out.
absolutely. There's clients that I'm the only one who does the bookkeeping on, you know, not a lot, but there are some, and we're actually changing it so that when we're bringing somebody on, I'm going to be working with them at first to make sure that the processes are set up properly before they move on. We've tried it the other way around and it just hasn't worked, because then by the time I get in, I'm like, no, I want to change this and I want to change that. There's so much time that's wasted and then having to go back. So now we're flipping it around. But yeah, so I'll never be able to completely get away from it. Okay, so we've got one more person to vote. That could be me, because I'm not allowed to vote. But oh no, it's attendees are new. Okay, so we'll just do a quick countdown. Remember, you have to answer both poll questions to get the CPD credits. So we'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Polling is ended, and here's the results.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that.
Yeah, I'm in the 83%.
I mean, again, like subjective, right? But what's important to you is really going to affect the strategy for your business, the people you work with, what you're working on. All these different aspects are really, where's your priorities? So, you know, in working with customers recently and seeing different people at different stages in their businesses and some of the stuff that they choose to do. And I catch myself doing this all the time where I'll just like, I'll look at something and I'll be like, oh, I'll do that for like, you know, 5 minutes. And then an hour later, it's like, why did I do that? That could have totally been so-and-so's task, right? And I could have been working on XYZ type things. So, all right. Well, thanks for joining the subjective webinar. Just our closing quote. This is one of my favorites from Alice in Wonderland. Which road do I take? Where do you want to go? I don't know. Then it doesn't matter. That was a good excerpt from. This is one of my favorites from that. Pick a direction and move.
That makes sense, because then you'll find out if it turns out you don't want to go there, you'll know to go back and take the next road, right?
Exactly.
Or make the next turn that comes up.
Exactly. When I was in football at Western, the coach would say, I will lose my mind if you're standing still. I'll get upset if you run in the wrong direction, but I'll be more mad if I find you standing still, because at least you picked direction in it. So.
Yep.
So again, you know, happy to connect with everybody online if we're connected already. I think most of us are. I hope this was useful. I hope that this was something that you know, got some juices flowing thought-wise about where you're spending your time, how you're spending your time, your customers, because you'll probably see that all the time, right? You know, customers. My favorite was this week. We got a bunch of answers from our weekly back and forth, and we've been chasing this customer for a couple of weeks, and she wrote back a bunch of I don't know. It's like, you're the owner manager of this business. It's fine that you don't know, but you can't just say I don't know and tell us that. Like, you need to do the research or have your team get back to you with an answer or something like that, because what are we supposed to do with I don't know, right? And that kind of, the fact that she's even looking at it all, and that she's not having her internal staff look at it, we've actually tried to kind of coach her on that. Just be like, listen, you may not know, but what about your team? Can they go and find out? I know you've got, you know, your assistant in the office. Like, can she go and figure out what, you know, what these things are about and get back to us with answers instead of you trying to address it and being the bottleneck all the time.
I feel like that is the most frustrating response from any client, because it's like, it's a lack of value for what we do, and I feel is incredibly disrespectful at the same time too. It's like, well, why is it expected that I put in that effort and I put in the time and the energy to do these things for you, when your response about something that is 100% your responsibility is I don't know? That's as good as I don't give a crap.
Yeah, that's pretty much the message that's being communicated, I think.
Right. Like, I have a couple of those myself, and I'm at the point right now, I'm at the point of making a list of who's going to stay and who's going to go. And people who respond to me with a I don't know, and then think that that's like a sufficient answer, it doesn't, like, you know, that's not somebody I want to work with. And I feel like none of us really do, because, you know, we value ourselves more, but at the same time, like, how are we supposed to do our jobs? I have a client that refuses to give me bank statements. So what I do every month is I go over there and I download the activity and all the bank statements. But the easiest way for me to do it is on her computer. 2.5 weeks ago, I forgot to email myself the bank statements. I'm still waiting on them. Like, we have emailed her 10 times in 2.5 weeks to ask her. And it's just like, this is like month after month, and I'm at the point where I've been debating about letting her go, and now I'm like, I literally can't do my job, and you're ignoring me. Like, she'll ignore my emails until the day I'm in front of her, and it's like, you can't go 4 weeks without responding. So
Well, you obviously care about her business and her books more than she does, and
I-
that, I think, is not a healthy relationship.
right.
Yeah.
I was just commenting on I don't know. Response is just, you know, people need to do better in that. Like the fact that we're just treated like magicians like that.
Psychics.
How about if somebody actually replies back, well, I don't know. Why don't you know this information?
Right.
You didn't give it to me.
Right. Yeah.
One
So-
thing we've found recently too is there's a big like unwillingness to read. So we
Mhm.
had one
Yes.
of our long-term customers send me this angry email about not wanting to complete the returning customer questionnaire for self-employed T1. We already have all that information. Why can't we just use that information again? The only question that is a repeat is her name. And there's on the questionnaire is a pretty long questionnaire, but a lot of it is that standard. I have these T slips or RL slips or whatever, or, you know, I need to ask questions about these things. The vast majority of questions weren't required. There was actually only like 8 required questions on the questionnaire. And one of them was her name. And then the other repeats were, you know, what slips she has this year. Those were those 2 questions. But
Which
yeah,
isn't
to
really
get
a
that kind of
repeat because that could
response.
change from year to year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every other question is there's a yes, no requirement. Like, did your marital status change? If so, what date and what did it change to?
Yeah.
And if you know, the yes, no is required, but the next is not. But just people failing to read. So talking about this I don't know thing, sending back somebody something and just be like, we have this hanging accounts payable. We think it's probably be paid. Can you tell us when and what payment method? And then they write back paid. And it's just like, well, we kind of figured that part out. We just
Yeah,
need
we
to
have a
tie
few-
this something. Was it paid by you on your personal credit card, your business partner on their personal credit card, a staff member who needs to be reimbursed? Like,
Yeah, Sandra's got one that's kind of regularly like that.
I'm sorry, Sandra.
What writing methods would you use though to determine how much is too much information that you're asking for to make your life easier versus too much work for your client to do that it makes their life not easier? Like we don't, there's certainly an expectation for a business owner to be involved in their business and have answers to our questions. But at what point is that balance of our own systems and processes being inflicted on them too much for them to bear? And what could we take away to alleviate some of our expectations of them? Like, how do you decide what those boundaries or borderlines are?
So, in my opinion, if the owner is getting to that point where they can't keep track of everything, they need some degree of office assistance to do that for them, because there's just too many moving pieces moving around. And, you know, as, you know, virtual or cloud bookkeepers, we can't play that role. But there are VAs and EAs out there who can, you know, hop into that role. The approach I take is about protection and communicating that. Like, our number one job is to protect you from getting into trouble from a tax perspective. So yes, we are not deducting HST when you did not provide a receipt. I'm sorry. You want us to go ahead and do that? This is our policy. Like, you need to find somebody else who's more willing to put you at risk in that manner than we are. You know, another example is having no documentation. Just do the bookkeeping from the bank statement. That's my favorite. It's like, so what value does that add? It'll allow you to get compliant, and then you might have a clue of how you did over a year ago. We know you need to charge HST on your sales, but we don't know where. So we can't do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of the times there's a misconception amongst business owners about the value that a good bookkeeper adds. And I think a good bookkeeper is really going to protect that customer half the time from themselves. Now, how onerous is too onerous? I think that all depends on the business and what's going on and what your scope of work is and your level of engagement. You know, if you're working with an e-commerce company with 1,000 SKUs, you should not, you know, be asking about that if you aren't engaged to take care of their inventory.
I think that like a lot of the things that I get frustrated a lot with most of my clients are basic things that are their responsibility. My job is to make their life a little bit easier by organizing the data that they provide. But if I have to constantly remind you, or if my job is to email you 10 times a month to remind you to upload your receipts so that I can give you the information, that's not, to me, that's not too much to ask of a business owner, because they're the ones that went into business. They're the ones that decided to do this. This is what their passion is. It's their responsibility to provide the info. If they're too busy, which is fine, to do the actual books, it's still their responsibility to provide the information so that that job gets done. So yes, I ask a lot, but it's kind of like, if you're not going to give me that, then I can't do that.
Well, what we've actually just changed over to doing is that essentially, because we've gone a couple of different ways over the years, we've gone where we hold up the reconcile until we get the information. Then we're not doing our job. And then next thing you know, 6 months has gone by, we're not being, can't reconcile. And then we're scrambling at year end. And then we've gone to the opposite. And what we're doing now, we're kind of like right in the middle. We're okay, 21 days. We've got like our ask client sheet, whatever it is, that we kind of go back and forth. Once a week, they get an email if there's anything on there. And we've actually had all of our clients sign an agreement saying that if they do not respond within 21 days, it will automatically be moved over to shareholders. If they want us to go in and change it afterwards, they can. We'll go back in at any time when they provide that, but they will be charged for that with a minimum. I think it's 3 hours that they can reach out to us. They can have us do it quarterly, manually, ad hoc, but it's going to be a 3-hour minimum charge, or they can pay more for the accountant to do it at year end. And then the accountant's going to give them crap. And the accountant's going to charge them more to deal with it at that point, of trying to figure out what should be shareholders, what should be moved over. Or maybe the accountant will say, yes, that's fine. We don't need the source document, but that's not going to be a decision for me. I will leave that to the accountant because I've done my job. The accountant's someone filing the tax return, so they can do that. But if the client wants us to come back and do it, essentially their penalty is, it's going to hit them in the pocketbook because we are done with this.
Kim, did you have a specific example or something that's happening that you want to talk about in that space?
So I'm just going to jump in. I need to jump off, but Jonathan, I'm going to make you host, and this will continue on, and I'll just get an email when it's done.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just going to make you host.
Kim?
Okay.
It might be.
Full honesty, Jonathan, it is. I've worked with you for a number of years on client files, and I've told you I find this most recent procedure that you have about completing that form a little labor intensive, given that a lot of the questions that are on it are answers that you would have in QBO already, as far as some of the asset questions, liability questions and stuff. And then also, given that I've told you when I submitted the file that everything is in SharePoint, so to complete a form that asks me, where is this located, where is that located, where do I find this, where do I find that, well, everything's kind of in QBO or in SharePoint. And so to go through and I know I originally told you that a lot of when you ask for examples of certain transactions that are in QBO, and I've said for this particular file, there would be too many to list. And you said to just say that. I think even if there wasn't too many to list, the fact that they're in QBO already, I don't know. I think
this is kind of the balance of our requirement getting slapped on the wrist by CPA for digging too deep. What we tried to do instead. But I'd love to hear more feedback. Maybe we can ask the questions in different ways. Are these stored? Are all the things we're looking for attached to the relevant transactions? Maybe we can make that a question and that make things easier.
Yeah, because as you know, I haven't submitted the form back again. It's been, I think, about a week since we had this conversation, and it's just a matter of, it's daunting for me to think about the amount of time it's going to take me to do it, for me to put that in my schedule to go in and do it. So
Maybe we could hop on a quick Zoom and just go through it together, because I don't want it to be daunting.
yeah,
So that's a failure in communication for sure on my part, or on Ken's part.
I'll get through it this week, and I'll just let you know there may be a lot of just refer to QBO like we spoke about
That's
before.
absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. What we got in trouble for was going in and digging around, because we're not licensed auditors or review, licensed in public accounting. Going to that level of detail upset CPA, and they found that from our work papers when we went through a practice inspection, and they were just like, you can't do this. Like, this is not your level of engagement. You should not be digging in on a transactional level. You need to ask whoever's in charge of the books and things like that. But
did not realize
it
that.
sounds to me like there's an opportunity. It sounds to me like there's an opportunity for me to improve that part of the process, the bookkeeper's checklist, and as to not just what is required, but the why.
Yeah,
like
exactly, because I didn't know that was the why.
So that's really interesting, because I have a couple really large clients that I work with one of the large 4 accounting firms, and I struggle with them because, like, I write very detailed emails. Like, I worked for this actually specifically this firm for many years, so I know what they're looking for when it comes to an NTR and what the questions they would be asking. So I write like a very clear email about these are all of the things. And I always get like emails coming back and asking me questions that I already answered, or were information, like one of them was like, can you provide us with information for this vehicle? And it's just like, I already said in my original email, we bought an asset. The purchase agreement is attached to the transaction in QuickBooks, but they emailed me and asked me for the backup, and it's like, it's in QuickBooks. Like, so now I'm kind of coming back to that, like maybe they're not allowed to go into those things.
Yeah,
but
so is that what you're saying,
that,
Jonathan, that you can't view an attachment in?
We need to show that we've asked the question.
Okay. So
that's really what it comes down to. Like, if we ask, where's the purchase bill of sale for this vehicle that you bought, and you're like, it's attached to the transaction QuickBooks, we can show that we asked the question, we got the answer, and then we can
Okay.
What we got in trouble for, sorry.
No, that's okay. This just makes some sense, because most of the time they come back and ask me questions that I've already given the information for. And it's like, why are you asking me this? And I guess it might be because they have to before they're allowed to look. Maybe, but I find it's just a waste of my time. Like, I literally just resend my original email. And I'm angry about it too. I'm really quite hasty. It's like, as per, like, I'm kind of snarky, you know?
It's definitely interesting that Amy and I had the exact same wondering about why accountants are asking us over and over again for information we've already taken time to provide. And Jonathan, you're telling us, according to your CBA rules, that you have to ask. So I had never heard that before. So that's a big why that explains why all the accountants I work with ask me for information I've already given them.
I've also never asked as to why you asked. Like, give it back.
Yeah, I'm like you.
There
I
still
always
might
get
be a way
angry
to do
and
it
I
better.
just assume that they didn't pay attention.
There still might be a way for us to do it better, right? There still might be a way for us to do it better. So
yeah,
this is like, for me, this is gold. This is absolute gold.
I think
how we can make those improvements.
I think
what we
part
got in
of it
trouble
is.
for.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what we got in trouble for was in-depth review of repairs and maintenance. and going into the receipt level, looking at things and then reclassifying them out. Because before we didn't even have a bookkeeper's checklist. We just go and we check all that stuff ourselves, book the adjusting entries. Not every bookkeeping company likes us booking the entries. So that's something else we had to change our process for. And I get it, because
I don't like
people
it.
out there who don't know how to book the entries properly.
I don't like
internal processes.
I don't like when the accounting firm books the entries, because then I'm really in depth with all of my clients' books and I know everything that's happening. And then all of a sudden these entries get made and the things happen and I don't know. That actually happened with a client. The accounting firm issued a dividend and then made the adjusting journal entries. And then I didn't find out for 3.5 months that the adjusting journal entries were made because nobody said anything. Like seriously? So that's the reason I don't like it. It's like, I'm fine if you do it, but like, hey, here's the backup. Here's what we did. Thanks so much for your hard work. I think it's also like a value of how it's perceived, how accountants view bookkeepers and vice versa. Because when I get emails from the accounting firm that's asking me questions that I've already clearly given the answers to, it's just like, you're treating me like I'm an idiot. And then I'm now like in the defensive mode thinking this accounting firm just thinks I'm a moron and I'm going to be like a snob. And then we come back and forth like this. And now I'm a cranky bookkeeper. And then, so anyway, but it makes a lot of sense. It's that disconnecting communication between the different levels of what has to happen, which is why I love working with people like you, Jonathan, who want to break down those barriers in the communication. Like, you have a different level of skill set than I'll ever possess. And there's different skills that I do that you can't do or don't want to do. And so we're valuable to each other, but we need to see that more than this like massive separation that happens to be in that accounting community, which I'm preaching to the choir probably.
Yeah, I think CPA, going to be a little controversial here. I think CPA Ontario needs to catch up with the times to a degree as well, because there's a lot of interesting accountants out there who, don't actually talk to their clients before making major decisions that cost them money and things like that. And then there's no recourse. There's a lot of firms out there who are run by CPAs who are not registered CPA practices. And I know one of them is Big Green Block. They hire CPAs every tax season. And if a CPA is working for a company, they should be a registered firm, and H&R Block is not. So, and they are doing public accounting. So it's going to be interesting. There's a big change coming down the pipe. December 14th, it takes effect, and that is going to be notice to reader statements are going, but every T2 corporate tax return will require compiled financial statements, which is considered public accounting. And it's going to be similar for like self-employed taxes are also going to be considered public accounting, which they kind of already are. But there was a law that passed earlier this year where CPA kind of governs what is considered public accounting. The issue is they can't enforce it. They don't enforce it. There's a lot of people out there who use the designation label who aren't CPAs, and it's quite shocking. Or they misuse it, right? Like certified payroll administrator, but they're claiming they're an accountant, those kind of things. Anyway, yeah, I love the feedback about how to improve the communication process. So thanks very much for that. Sandra, you look like you wanted to say something earlier.
I was just going to say that I find like sometimes and this is completely different, but similar, that when I'm looking for information from a client, telling them the why often gets me what I want faster, opposed to not. So like what you said to Kim, like telling her the why totally made sense to her, why she needed to do that, right? So I just find that sometimes not just saying I need a statement or why was this paid or how was this paid, telling them the why I need that information, it gets me the information, and it also gets it to me faster. Like even with Amy needing those statements, telling her why it is important that you get those statements helps her to understand why you actually need them, and hopefully she'll get them to you sooner. That was it.
I think that's a fantastic place to close on, is the why. All about the why, right?
Yeah.
Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for staying after Tanya had
Thank
to
you.
go.
It was very good. Very
Good.
informative.
Glad. I hope there was value, and I hope at least it got the juices flowing to decide on what your next priority is.
Yes.
Take care, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.